everybody, Cindy Daycheck with Queen Bee Creations. For today's project, I want to fix up this tiny little wall cabinet. It's hanging hardcore in the back, but it's old, it's kind of tired. People were throwing it out, so we're saving it. And I think it could be done so that it's super cute. My plan for it is that we are going to, well, let me see if you can see. We're gonna kind of lighten and brighten it up a little bit. It's pretty dingy, it's pretty dirty looking. But it's in good shape. I mean, it's got screws for knobs. We'll change that out. But I think that what we can do is make it super cute, super fun. It's already functional. Everybody needs a little bit of extra storage for things. I could see this being in a craft room. I could see even in a kid's room, maybe to save some of their favorite little tea set or some of their favorite little action figures or cars or whatever. I see it in a craft room with all kinds of spools of thread or just so many uses. It could be used as a display for people that are collecting something. So it's really practical, but it needs a little bit of help. So to do that, we're gonna get started by working on the back of it, if I don't break it first. Meaning, I actually want to take this backing off. It's going to help us be able to paint out the inside of it better and easier. But I want to do a cute little treatment with it. So usually these backings have got maybe tiny little nails, and this one's no exception. So I'm just taking a screwdriver and taking it along that backing to be able to pop it out easier. Okay, I have my backing board off and the nails removed. I did give it a quick little sand just because it had old dirty things on it and I wiped it down. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to be decoupaging this, and I have this cute little floral gift wrap paper, and it's got this lovely kind of turquoisey blue, so I'm going to be painting out in Sweet Pickins Milk Paint in Patina on the cabinet. But what I do want is just a little bit of more color and brightness added on the inside. So before I do anything else, I want to just kind of roughly cut out some paper. Now I don't need to make this exact just yet. I can cut out later around it because it's not going to show, but I do want to at least not be using the whole roll, right? If I get something that's down a little bit to size, it's going to make my life a little bit easier. And I'm going to leave it a little bit bigger on all of the sides than I need. I can sand that off, and you'll see what I mean when we get to that stage. But I'm just going to cut around this. Put your paper off to the side because we don't need it yet. And what I am going to do is I'm going to coat this surface with my decoupage medium. Now, I am going to use the iron-on method. It's my preferred method when I have a big, large, flat surface. If I was doing something curved, totally different ball game. But because this is a big, flat surface, I am just going to be, get this open. Yep, okay. So I'm just going to simply be covering this over with my glue. Now I am using Mod Podge. You could use from the DIY line, you could use the clear patina, the liquid patina, crystal clear chandelier. That works. Whatever medium that you want. I just know for the iron-on method, this one works just fine. because we're gonna let the glue dry. And then we are gonna use heat from the iron to reactivate it. So you want to get a fair bit of glue on there so that when you go to use the iron, it reactivates just fine. Okay, so we don't have to totally douse it, but I want to get enough on that when I go to iron this later, it's got enough glue on there that it's going to get my paper to stick. So this step, super easy. Just paint on the glue, and we're going to set it off to the side, and we're going to let it dry. One of the first things I'm going to want to do is remove the fake hardware screws, and we'll look into a little bit later, see what I have in my stash that we could use in their place that would be maybe a little bit easier. Certainly a step up from just screws. And as well, what I'm going to do is take a look at potentially removing the glass. First of all, because it needs a really good cleaning. It's so much easier without the frets, but it also enables me to get that fret painted fairly easily. So, in fact, these are barely held in there as it is, with teensy tiny little nails. Let me get the other screwdriver instead, and I can just pretty much pull those nails out of the way and pop that glass out. So the glass we're not going to be doing anything with beyond giving them a good dust and a good cleaning, but it's going to give me better access to this fretwork so I can get that painted out, which is going to be great. And this piece of glass came out just fine. Oh my goodness. All right. So, and always, I like to do a good cleaning, just get off a lot of the dust. Now, as I said earlier, I'm going to be using patina in Sweet Pickens Milk Paint line. It requires, because it comes in powder form, it requires me to mix this up. But the nice thing is, because this is such a small project, I don't need to mix up a lot. And because milk paint comes in a powdered form, I don't have to mix up any more than I need. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit of it and see how it goes. If I end up needing more for a second coat later, I can. So I'm just kind of scooping. And in general, you maybe do 1 part paint to 1 part water. I'm going to want to add a little bit of extra bond to this because I don't want tons and tons of chipping. And this is a little bit of a shellacked, shiny surface on this. And so I'm not going to want to add quite as much water, and I prefer warm water, and I also prefer adding the water to the paint rather than the paint to the water, only because I tend to find that the paint doesn't clump up quite as bad. So I'm just using a little wire whisk. Often I will use an immersion blender, but I really don't have enough paint in here to even have the immersion blender work, in which case a whisk works just fine. So I am just going to kind of guesstimate with some of the extra bond. I've got the last little bit in this container, literally just dribbles. And again, there is a formula you can follow for the extra bond, for how much to add in, depending upon how much paint you've got. And because I don't mind some chipping if it happens, I don't mind if there's no chipping. I'm just guessing, I'm playing with it. Ooh, and look at that color. That's gorgeous. And that color, let me just show you. That color with picking up the greeny patina blue in those flowers, that's gonna be super cute. Okay, so we're done. All that we need to do at this stage is start painting. And I am going to do 2 coats of paint, and I'm going to paint the whole thing in this color. I'm going to paint the inside, obviously, since you see me painting the inside, and the outside, all the same color, so nice and easy. And it means top and bottom of the shelves, all the outside of it. The first coat really is going to be pretty thin because it's going on over that fairly slick surface. So really I'm creating a thin surface of the paint that's going to give my second coat something to stick to. But you can make, the beauty of the milk paint too is that you can make it as thin or as thick as you want, right? Generally speaking, if you make it super thick, you're gonna get some definite chipping happening. But you can get some really cool textures with it as well. Okay? So, I'm just gonna carry on painting. I'm gonna get 2 coats on this, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna carry on with finishing off some of our decoupaging and assembling, and this is gonna be a super quick, super fun little project. While I wait for my little cabinet to dry, and I want it to dry fully, so I've got 2 full coats on it, and then just a little bit of touch-ups to be able to use up what was left in the container. But I had more than enough already mixed to be able to do all of that. So 2 heaping teaspoons, I think I had another little half a teaspoon in, was more than enough to be able to do that cabinet, 2 full coats, and a 3rd touch-up coat perfectly. And I did do the bottom of the cabinet because as much as somebody could rest it on a counter, in the case that somebody wants to hang it, you'd want the bottom to be finished as well. So this was the board that we had put our Mod Podge onto. You can see that it's all dry, it's not tacky. And this is the piece of wrapping paper that we had cut to roughly fit, right? We did a little bit of an overlap because I'm gonna just sand off the edges. I just wanted to make sure that I had more than enough. And we are just going to work on attaching it now. So all that I have done is I've taken a piece of parchment paper. It doesn't have to be as big as what I'm doing because I can move it as I go to iron. And I have my iron, okay, heating up. We want it on a dry heat and pretty much as high as it will go. So that's on high. And we are just going to use the heat to reactivate that glue. So I want to move it around because I don't want to burn my paper. The parchment is there to, 1, protect the paper from the iron, so it's less likely to burn it, but it's also there to protect your iron. You don't want that glue reactivating coming through perhaps your paper, less likely because I'm using a wrapping paper, but more likely if I was using a really fine tissue paper or maybe decoupaging a napkin. And all that we're looking to do, so really you want to focus on getting those edges. In this case, because it's going to be nailed in against something, if the edges aren't quite down, that's going to be okay because it's going to be hidden. But for the most part, you want to make sure that you get all those edges and don't rush it. Just go kind of slowly. And I like to work like top down or center out, you know, just to make sure that we're getting any of those natural air bubbles that occur, that we're moving them out. But I do find that this method for big areas gives you the best, smoothest surface. So already I can see that that's adhered, right? This is all kind of bubbled up and raised. This is down, it's nice and flat. It's working great. Okay, so my paper is all down, and all I want to do, and I'm gonna back away here, but I'm taking my sanding block and I'm gonna sand down and away from the edge of that board. And you see how one little spot, that's already cut, right? Perfect. So perfect edging. Without having to futz with scissors or an X-Acto knife. And it gives you that great edge. So that's why I left that little tiny bit of a lip. And that's done. Perfect cut. All right, so we are now just going to take that outside and spray it 2 or 3 times and let that dry and coat it. Leave it overnight. We're leaving the cabinet that's just up here sitting overnight to dry as well, and then we'll come back. Now that our cabinet has had a chance to dry overnight, it's time to just sand this up. And really I'm just looking at doing a little bit of light distressing on it, smoothing out some of the paint a little bit. I'm just using a sanding block, but you could use a piece of sandpaper if you want. It's not a major grit because I'm just looking at kind of getting a smooth finish first. So I'm just kind of knocking down some of the high spots and smoothing it out because I like to have things smooth to the touch when I finished them. Once I've knocked off just lightly all of the high spots, I will go back over some of the edging and just bring out a little bit of that original wood color just to create a little bit of that distressing before our next step. Now that it's all sanded and dusted, so do a quick wipe to get any of the dust off, I do want to seal this. And I'm going to do that using some DIY wax. So I have nice clear wax and I do have some white wax as well. So I'm going to be using both on this piece because I think that the contrast of it, I think that white rubbed in over top as well will kind of soften, give a little bit of a softer, dreamier look to our milk paint. And milk paint loves wax, so it's a great sealer for it. And really, I'm just going to be waxing the piece like I just did, taking some of the white wax, rubbing it over top, and just kind of softening the color a little bit. Now in this case, because my wax, my clear wax, is on there, it's pretty wet still. Does that make sense? That it's just been recently applied. I'm just going to take the white wax and drift it over the top, and I'm not going to wipe it back. So I'm going to apply it with a light hand so I don't have clumps of it, but I'm just going to let it sit. And then tomorrow it will be dry, then I'll let it sit overnight. Tomorrow it will be dry and I can come in and buff the piece. So tomorrow we will buff it, we will reattach the back, and then we're done. We are almost finished our little cabinet, but if you recall, they just had screws partially drilled into the door frame and sticking out. It's a very attractive look. And we're gonna add little tiny silver knobs. So a little bit nicer looking, but it does mean we need to drill a hole. So all that I'm going to do is there's an existing hole that's halfway in. I'm just taking a drill bit size to my screws, and I'm just, awesome. So that's perfect. Our screws will fit right in, and hopefully they're the right length. Yes, all the way. There you have it. A very cute little project for repurposing a little cabinet that, again, you can use hanging up. We've got the hanging hardware on the back, or that you can just put on a tabletop, but repurpose, just freshen up so that it's got a little bit more life in it. So this is a perfect example of something that you could do on your own to be able to freshen up items in your home. Hopefully it inspires you to take a look around, see things that you're not using or you're thinking getting rid of that maybe have served a really practical purpose and can continue to do so if you just switch them up to be able to fit in with whatever the decor look you're going after is now. I'm Cindy Daychek, Queen Bee Creations. Hit like, hit subscribe. Keep me coming in your feed. Every Friday I bring you a new idea and a new little craft project. Never know what I'm thinking up next. If you've got some ideas of things that you'd like to see, put them into the comment section below. But otherwise, I'll see you next week.